Welcome to the Wise Idea Weekly Podcast with Christopher J. Harris, focusing on life, leadership, family, marriage, and the church. We are providing tools for our inspiration and wisdom for life. Our goal is to inspire everyday people to live wise lives. If you're new to us, we release a brand new podcast weekly on Thursdays. Thank you for tuning in for this week's episode. Here's our host, Christopher J. Harris.
Hello, my friends. Welcome again to another episode of the Wise Idea Weekly Podcast. I'm your host, Christopher J. Harris, and I'm so excited that you've tuned back in for another week. Well, guess what, guys? We've got part two of this incredible conversation from last week's episode, and I don't want to delay the time any longer. Let's jump right in to keep the conversation going.
Yeah, I was trying to take some notes to keep up with all the truth bombs you were dropping, and I just stopped. I'm like, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to my own podcast because this is just incredible. You've listed, we've got a crisis in leadership. We've got some reconciliation issues that we've got to run towards. Is there anything else at this point you would add to that list?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff we're doing too, but in terms of of defending, of your theme and this idea of what are we doing that we need to work on. I mean, a big thing is succession. We already talked about it, and it's the generational transfer of not just the church, meaning the building and the assets and the physical location, but what it is it's the fathers and the mothers of the house. Like it's the idea that the church, Big C church, we have to actually pass on to the next generation what has been, for many of us, the greatest expression of our calling. And I have a lot of young leaders around me, and I know you do too. They don't want to take what we built. And this is a real issue. It is a real problem. Now, what's the solution? I think a lot of it is that both younger and older leaders have to have humility. And we've got to walk in with this understanding that, hey, there's a lot of things we're not doing well. But if we're going to pass something on, it's just like a family. When you pass on something to your family, there has to be both a posture of receiving as well as a posture of giving or imparting. And a lot of leaders who need to be imparting and a lot of leaders who need to be receiving don't have enough humility to do either. Because there's just a lot of issues that are in the middle of that. So we got to show up with a whole lot more humility and a posture of just saying, hey, this is the future of the Big C church at stake. And here's where it shows up a lot of times. It shows up churches that are closing, churches that are splitting, a lot of churches that are getting planted out of a place where a young leader said, I don't want to work for that person anymore. In fact, I'm going to open something up close to where we were so that I can show them, and that is all like incredibly toxic. It's cracks in the system. And I don't have any issue with church planters. I mean, I love the church planting movement, but it can't be because you're trying to run away from something compared to you're being released to go do something. Those are two different approaches to the same leadership issue. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, you're really talking about the difference between being sent versus went. It's bad
Exactly.
English, but good principle.
That's exactly right. Yep.
So you've seen a gamut of leaders. You've seen a gamut of environments. Let's talk for a moment about what's right with the church and what do you see in the future, man? Where do you like if you were being interviewed for USA Today? Hey, USA Today may take this podcast. I don't know.
Come on.
But yeah, man. What does Brad Lomenick see in the future of the church?
Well,
Where are we headed?
I think the good news is also a really long list. So, obviously the digital world, the church in general is really doing, I think, a good job of not owning the digital space, but at least like jumping in with both feet. So when you think about the average person around the world who now has access to the gospel, on demand anytime. That's a really good thing. And that's I think in many ways that's the future. I believe, again, we've got to drop all of our issues, because there's a lot of old leaders who hear that and they go, oh, if you don't show up in a physical location, that's not real. And I just want to say, what are you talking about? Like, it's more than real. It's equally as real as somebody actually, walking into your physical location. And we got to get over that idea that, again, it's a oh, by the way, the digital church is, oh, in case you didn't come, we have this option for you. And I think the future, Christopher, is that people they're going to see that their digital interaction around being a part of a local house, a local expression, is going to now be where they start. And the physical interaction is going to actually be now the thing that almost feels like it's secondary. And we're already seeing this with church attendance. The average person in America, just in America, who would say, I am committed to this local church expression, they're now attending, twice a month at most. So if I get 24 days, not even days, but 24 hours of a person's world over the course of a year, and those are the people who are committed, what am I doing with the rest of those hours and days and interactions and conversations and connection points to help that person really thrive in their life? And so we've got to change the way we measure what success is as the local church. But I think we're moving in the right direction on that. And there's a lot of really good examples out there. So that would be one. I think there's also a really healthy intersection that's now being both, I would say, brought back to the original intent of the Acts church, meaning that the intersection of exegetical and expressive is now sort of the standard by which a lot of influential churches are building or creating what they put together as an experience. And here's what I mean. Like the old days, if you were exegetical, if you were Bible preaching, you tended to get sort of put in one corner. And if you were charismatic or expressive or grace-filled or loud, you got put in the other corner. And never the two shall meet. Because if they did meet, then, who knows what's going to happen. And I think nowadays, those things actually intersecting is where you would see a lot of the most influential, impactful churches. That's where they sit. Again, it's that tension place of, man, we are deeply Bible believing, but we're also deeply expressive. Do we believe in the full Trinity, the expressions of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit? Absolutely. Are we charismatic? Sure. Are we reformed? Uh-huh. Like you just start answering all the questions. Yes. And that's where I think, again, that the people walking in, the person showing up at your church, they don't care like what category you're in. They don't care what denomination you are. Most people today, they just want Jesus, and they want something that feels like it's going to help them do life well. So, you don't have to choose anymore. I love that. I love the idea that I can walk in and raise my hands and also listen to an hour sermon, deeply diving into the Gospel of John. And those are both equally part of the local house in Atlanta that I see, again, like at that place of intersection. And if you're heading the other way from that, you need to stop and think, wait, we got to turn things around, start moving towards that intersection point.
No, I think you're spot on. I'm learning, and this is a personal, transparent moment, but I'm learning to live in that tension personally as well, because I've been frustrated with being boxed out or boxed in, and this notion that I can be both intellectual and charismatic. Things don't have to be binary. I can be prophetic and professional at the same time.
Exactly.
I can de-spook the Holy Spirit and yet be sitting in a meeting with our mayor while receiving downloads from God at the same time, and just all of that. So I think you're right on, Johnny, on the spot with that. I want to be sensitive to our time, because I could listen to you probably talk for another 5 hours. but I know that that's unrealistic for your time, my time, and those that are listening today. At some point, maybe down the road, I'm sure I'll have you back. Let me ask you this: when I look, if I were to look at your reading list, your current reading list, what are you digging into? What are the topics and the subjects that you're digging deep on?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely reading a lot about what I would say is the digital disruption. I want to be a student of the future, and there's a lot of great stuff that keeps coming out, especially from the tech world, and specifically when it comes to leadership. I love reading Pat Lencioni. I mean, he's one of my favorite authors. He's a management guru. It's a guy named Simon Sinek that I think is a great voice on leadership, especially thinking about the next generation. I like to really take in a lot of podcasts. I said that earlier, and I think that's actually one of the great advances of the last several years is that, man, we have so much content available to us in the niche or the place that's going to impact us most. And here's the great news about podcasts. FREE. I mean, they're free. You can consume as many as you want, and it doesn't get any more expensive. So I'm just a geek when it comes to podcasts. I listen to 20 or 30 a week, and those are and I'm always sort of looking for something new to listen to. I consume a lot of stuff on TED.com, which is a great outlet for talks, and I there's a lot of stuff that I watch or listen to from TED that I don't even agree with. But I think, again, as a leader who's going to be in that place of attention, out on the edge, like, I'm not trying to find things I disagree with so that they will change my mind. I'm actually finding things I disagree with so I will be deeper convicted about the things that I do believe in. So that's a sign of maturity, hopefully. But I could go on for several minutes about all the outlets. When somebody says, Brad, I don't even know where to start. How do I learn today? What's available? I don't feel like there's anything out there. And I just want to punch them right in the throat and say, come on, like, there's never been more stuff available to us, so start somewhere and just start taking it in.
That's incredible. Yeah. So I got some quick fire questions that I want to shoot at you, but really fast. Let me just really fast say on air that Brad has written 2 books. One book came out in 2013 called The Catalyst Leader, an incredible book that's got some great principles in it, talks about some skills you need. His second book is called H3 Leadership, and I love the subtitle of it, or the breakdown of it. It's Be Humble, Stay Hungry, and Always Hustle, which even in and of itself is a message, because it deals with this, who am I and where am I going, and how hard am I going to work to get there, and all those kinds of things. And so you really spend a lot of time talking about the habits that leaders need in the book. He also has a blog that he does, and I love this. This is the selflessness, I think, part of you, where you talk about change makers and other next generation influencers. And so for those that are listening to this, I would encourage you to go to Brad's blog, subscribe to it so you can get it when he sends it out. If not, just put it in your calendar to say, hey, monthly reminder to go to Brad's blog and look at the list of people. And it's crazy. Maybe this is the nerd in me as well, but literally when that list comes out, Brad, I literally take that list and I pull up 2 screens and I start following people on Twitter and Instagram and checking out what they're doing and how they're, and I don't know if that's your intent or not, but that's the way that I've been approaching it, because I just want to learn from those folks and at least see what people are doing, and it's not just a list of church people, Yeah.
Well, and thank you for that. And that's I feel like that's one of my legacies. I've now had 800 people on that list, 800 leaders who've been on that list over 10 years. Yeah.
Wow.
And my theory on that, Christopher, is that, first of all, when you start to be the aggregator, you now become the expert, because the fact that I put the list together, everybody says, oh, Brad, you're the expert on young leaders. So, you want to actually stand out in your category. Just start being the person who builds a platform that you put other people on, and you will automatically gain influence. But I also was just selfish because I needed to know myself. who were the young leaders. And, it forced me to be really disciplined in doing the digging and finding them. And everywhere I go, it doesn't matter where I am, I'll ask somebody, hey, who do you know that's young, that is influential, that maybe nobody knows about, who, and it's now just a habit that I constantly try to live out.
Got it. One last question, and then we're going to do the quick fire. All right. So you mentioned earlier about you're now influencing the 10, right? This table of 10. So somebody's listening to this. How do they get to the table of 10 for your coaching or your training or whatever that is that you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, they can just reach out on my website, or my email is just first and last name at Gmail. So that's an easy way to get me. And that doesn't go to like some bogus outlet. I mean, that actually comes to me. The world we live in today is that everybody wants to be connected, and everybody feels like they should be. So I'm not trying to create, massive gatekeepers and barriers of protection. It's like, no, just email me, first and last name at Gmail, and I'll get it. But that's the easiest way to connect with me. I am pretty mysterious in terms of the way I approach, the people I'm really trying to impact. And so I don't hang out a shingle. I'm very low key about the work I do, because I don't want it to be the lead story. The lead story for me is that I'm still out there trying to inspire a lot of leaders. And then under the radar, behind the scenes, in the shadows, I'm over here doing stuff that is more strategic with organizations. So that's kind of the way I approach it. It's a flip of what it was before.
Got it. All right. So you ready for these quick fire questions?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. This is how I end every podcast with every guest that comes on. So this is like my tradition. All right. So the goal is for me to ask the question as quick as I can, and you answer with the first thought that comes to mind.
Okay.
All right. Number 1, Apple or PC?
Apple.
The first 2 hours of your day looks like what?
Reading.
Your favorite food?
Mexican.
Favorite movie?
Hoosiers. Old school.
Yeah, man. Favorite TV show?
Current or past? Does it matter?
Let's do both.
The past, it would have been Seinfeld. Current, I don't have a good one currently, because I think TV stinks today. So I'll just leave it at that.
That's another podcast. All right. Favorite quote?
I'm going to go with St. Francis of Assisi, which was the quote, preach the gospel at all times, and if necessary, use words.
Top 3 items on your bucket list?
Go to every continent. I'm missing Antarctica. Fly in the Air Force One plane with the president, not necessarily the current president, any president, and be in a movie. I got way more than that. Those are 3.
No, that's great. I love that. So I've already asked you about the book, so I'll skip that question. But what book other than the Bible, what book has had the most impact on your life?
21 Laws of Leadership by John Maxwell. I'm not just saying that.
What was your favorite?
I'm not just saying that because I work for him either.
No. That's one of my favorites. So real fast story. I used to be a high school guidance counselor, but I taught a leadership class in the high school, and I required for these 16 and 17-year-olds to buy the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership.
It's one of my top 5 books ever, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Your favorite subject in high school?
English and calculus. It was a tie.
Wow. Calculus, huh?
Yeah. I was a math nerd, but also really like words.
Okay. That's a nuanced quality. I love that. Did you win any superlatives in school?
Did I win what?
Any superlatives in high school?
What is that?
Like best dressed or most athletic or any of that?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think I won. I think I won most likely to succeed.
Okay.
Because I was,
awesome.
I was that kid who was always trying to get the awards and be president of the class, and I was always trying to stand out.
All right, so here's the last question. What has been the funniest thing that's ever happened to you?
Well, okay, I'll give you one from high school. So I played sports, small high school, everybody plays every sport. If you have any kind of athletic ability, you got to play all the sports. And so I played basketball. And sophomore year, I'm riding the pine. And at timeouts, we had those rip away warm-ups, had the buttons on the side. And and we would always act like when we would get up for the timeout, we would try to rip each other's pants off, the guy that was sitting next to you, just because we were bored. And so one of the games, mine got not only ripped off, the buttons, like the guy next to me in both sides, they grabbed the buttons and, pulled. But not only did they pull the actual warm-up, but they pulled the shorts. So the student section got a full moon for about 5 seconds before I made sure that I, got the drawers back up. So that was one of my legacies of my high school career, was one of the only people to ever have that happen to them at a timeout at a basketball game.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is from the gentleman who was most likely to succeed. Brad, this has been amazing. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for being on today. I'm going to give you the last word. Is there anything else you felt like we should have covered or should have said before we end this episode?
No, I'm good, man. Hey, thanks for what you're doing. And for all the leaders who are listening, don't get content. Figure out where you are, be self-aware, but also be willing to hustle and, start learning. Don't ever be in a place where you feel like you're coasting. It's our job to keep getting better as leaders. So listen to this podcast, find books you're listening to, reading, be a absolute sponge. Keep getting better.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Our brand new friend, old friend, new friend to many of you guys, Brad Lomenick. He's on the Wise Idea podcast today. Thank you guys again for listening today. Thank you for sharing us on social media and connecting with us on social media. I want to invite you, go check out the show notes. A lot of what Brad talked about today, how to connect with him even, a lot of the references and books and resources that he recommended and will recommend, those will be in the show notes as well. Our goal is to help everyday people live wise lives. So if you've enjoyed what you've heard today, I'm going to beg of you, please, and our announcer is going to talk about this a little bit more, but please go to iTunes or Google Play and leave us a rating and a review. That's actually how other people find us. I'm so honored that you tuned in today, and you know how I end every single week. Live wisely.
Thanks again for joining us on another episode of the Wise Idea Podcast with Christopher J. Harris. We hope you enjoyed our time together. If you did and would like additional resources and information, you can find the previous episodes, show notes, featured guest information, and more at www.thewise-ideapodcast.com. We also invite you to join the conversation on social media. The Wise Idea Podcast is on Twitter and Facebook. Find us at The Wise Idea and at our Facebook group, The Wise Idea Podcast. On Instagram, find us at The Wise Idea Podcast. Our host is also on social media. You can find him regularly on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest, all located at CJ Harris 1. Finally, if you enjoyed what you've heard, head over to iTunes and or Google Play and leave a rating and review for other listeners to find us. Our podcast is also on Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Thanks again for joining us. We will see you the next time. Live wisely.
Understanding.